Okay, so I'll
Excellent.
start with my bit. There we are. So we've got a quite what looks like quite a crowded agenda, and Ruth only seems to appear once, but I can assure you this is mainly going to be Ruth's meeting, not mine. I'm just going to take you through a few things quite quickly. Firstly, a welcome, and we were going to show ourselves to you. It's worth doing because I don't think there's everyone that's on this call is there. Only thing is I've forgotten how I don't seem to be able to do. Oh, you can probably see me already because I never turned my and I can see you as well, Bruce.
Yeah, I'm at the bottom.
So I'm going to be doing the housekeeping. Ruth's in charge. Nothing new in that at all. And just to remind you that I try to provide information to customers and to give a bit of advice and the like to product and of course to customers as well. So that's me, and this is Ruth. Do you want me to stop? Oh, they can see you, can't they? So if you want to just introduce yourself.
Yes, I'm Ruth Vincent, and I'm a business analyst. And I've been working in the statutory return area for quite a while now. And I'm concentrating on school census for this session. And I'm going to take you through, it says a very short presentation. I've got a couple of slides, but the main thing I want to do was actually show you the software and show you how T levels could be recorded by a school.
That's great, Ruth. Thank you. Now, what we're hoping in terms of the types of people that'll join us today, we're hoping we're hoping to get some schools and then other people that tend, that are customer facing. So we're likely to see some colleagues that work for Capita, and also some colleagues who are supporting these schools, or will be supporting schools that get involved in T levels and transition T levels in the future. We know there's not many and even slightly fewer than we expected starting this September, but we think that will pick up. Just a few points of housekeeping. We are planning to record the meeting, but you can interrupt if you need to when Ruth's talking, and certainly while I'm talking. But it's often best if you do it if you can. I'll show you how, just to remind you of it. But it's best if you do it via putting your hand up or via the chat. The chat will be good because we want to record. We want to make a recording of that afterwards, and then use it for subsequently. Now, all of these things have happened to me while on call, so I just thought I'd remind you of them. I'm not going to tell you where to get out if there is a fire. You'll be glad to know, and certainly not anything about my second item there. Or deliveries. I think I've got someone set up to take my delivery, and it's not nappies like that one there is. So a bit of etiquette for the meeting. In terms of, let me just bring this across just to show you what we got in mind. So you should now be seeing my display, and I've got meeting chat on. If you're using the app, it's easy to have the chat on. If you're desperate to know who's on the meeting, you can also click on the thing that shows people. And if you raise your hand, you can probably see something on your screen about someone who's raised their hand. And I think I've now lowered it, I hope. I think that's all we need to look at the moment, Ruth, isn't it, in terms of how to use it? If you really need, at the moment, there's not enough people for you to worry too much about speaking directly, let's be honest. But later on, it might get a bit more crowded. Objectives of the meeting. Well, I'll leave you to read that through. They're the sorts of things that Ruth, in particular, is aiming at. Notice the outcome, that we do want to use that chat vehicle as a means, and then, and you know, if you say something to us, best if it's in the chat, because then we can capture it for the first stage of a fact, because we think there's going to be quite a lot of that needed for this T level area, not only for the people who are introducing it this time, but people who are thinking about it for the future, so they can see what they're taking on. Just to a reminder that I did put up yesterday something about the file set 1600 series, and basically, if you've taken the release, you will know that the actual validation is awful, that's there at the moment. Not our fault, and to a certain extent not the DFE's, let's be generous, fault either. But they have now sent us a beta that looks something close to right, and we expect to be able to release that fairly imminently. And here, when you get these slides, if you don't know where the file sets are, you can just click on this, and it will take you to the to the actual place where they're stored. And you know, once you've gone to somewhere, anything you get from me will allow you to go back to the hub where I stuck all my stuff, and then you can go down and find anything else you like. So that's quite a useful area to look at for things like the file sets. And now, without further ado, it's over to Ruth for the important bit of the meeting. And she's told me I've got to stop sharing, so I'm going to stop sharing. Hopefully it's over to you now, Ruth.
Okay, I'll try and share.
Chat on,
Right.
so I will mention it to Ruth if I see anything that's urgent.
Okay, so can you see my slide? I've put basically some useful bits of information.
Ruth, do you want to get rid of me from your slide if you can by putting it at the bottom? You're clicking, that's it. Thanks.
Yeah, so basically what we are intending to do is to send these sets of slides to you after the meeting. So I'm not going to go through all of them in very much detail, but I thought it was useful to, if you wanted to read more about the background to T levels and access the actual website that's there for schools and employers, then I've collected that information for you. Okay. Within the slides, hopefully, I'm going to be able to answer all of these questions, but I'm not going to go through all the slides. I'm going to show you in the software. So I'm not sure if everyone knows what a T-level is or a T-level transition. So I've put some slides together just to show you the bare bones of what they are, and also I've put some useful links in here that take you to the DFE information, so you can go to the source of the information, because potentially it might have more detail added to it. Well, hopefully it will from what I gained when I looked originally. So a T-level is a new technical qualification which has an industry placement as quite a large part of the study. It's equivalent to 3 A-levels, and it's a level 3 post-16 programme. It's been developed in collaboration with employers and businesses, and it's a mixture of classroom learning and on-the-job experience. And the industry placements are quite a significant part, and they have to be at least 315 hours or approximately 45 days. In terms of the rollout, the first 3 T-levels are being delivered from this September, and as far as we know, we think we have about 6 sim schools who are taking part in this first rollout. And these are the first 3 subjects at the bottom that are being rolled out. So in my example today, I've just chosen the digital production, design and development route. Something you might want to read at your leisure from FE Week recently, something about T-level wobbles. So some people are obviously delaying their rollout partly due to the pandemic. And
one of those was ours, wasn't it? The Silesian school.
yeah.
Silesian, sorry.
That's it. So the structure of a T-level, there is a technical qualification element, which has a core part to it, which concentrates on the main skills needed for that industry area. And it's something that is likely to last for 2 years. So it's a 2-year program with a core element to it, and has a component or components which concentrate on specialist skills. So that's an occupational specialism. And then there's an industry placement component, and a minimum standard for maths and English if the students haven't already achieved them. And it can include other qualifications and requirements dependent on what T-level the student is pursuing. There's a little bit of extra information at the bottom about industry placements, and there's a link there to more detail about that. This diagram, I think this has come from some DFE document, but it's quite nice. It shows you an overall picture of what makes up a T-level program. So it says it could be up to 1,800 hours over 2 years, but there is flexibility. And then there's on the blue side on the left, you've got the core content. On the right in the green, you've got occupational specialisms. Bottom left, you've got the T-level industry placement, and then any additional maths and English requirements. Then in the purple, there could be other requirements that are needed for that particular T-level subject. And then bottom right, you've got all the non-qualification activities. So, for example, employability, enrichment and pastoral requirements.
So maybe worth just mentioning that bit in the corner that we just looked at is nothing new to us, because we've already got that as a component of study programs, as they're called.
Yeah, and I'm not going to go into the exam side, but I've given you a link here, which takes you to the information about grading and certification. Okay, so that'll be useful. The other new program type that's been introduced is T-level transition, and this is also from September, and it's going to be a 1-year program for pupils who want to eventually start a T-level. Okay, so there's a link to information for that as well. And that's a look at the structure of what a T-level transition program would look like. Okay. So in terms of what I wanted to show you in Sims, I've just tried to break it down to show you an overall post-16 program of study program, but focusing on the T level and how that can be recorded from September. So in Course Manager, we have the ability to record students on courses. So I've given you some examples here. The first one, you've got the T-level overall qualification. So I've put Quan for the qualification number. So that's the aim that's likely to be the one that goes over 2 years. and then underneath an example of a T-level specialism, occupational specialism, which would have its own QAN. And then underneath any other study for non-qualification items. And then at the bottom, I've got the T-level work placement QAN. So we can create a course for work placements and for T-level work placements specifically. And they do have specific QANs, which for work placements, we know what they are, but they're not available yet. So I can actually show you what they are. And then if there's any English or maths courses, they're shown at the bottom. I've arranged it in this order to show the relationship between the planned hours that need to be reported. So in the top right, that's from the DFE information. So it's telling you exactly what you should include in the T-level planned hours. So for the planned hours, they're interested in the technical qualifications, the specialist content, and the non-qualification activity, but they don't want English and maths or industry placements or any other qualifications to be recorded as part of the planned hours. So that might be quite an important thing that we need to get across to schools. And then I just wanted to try and relate that example to exactly
Ruth, Paul's just got his hand up. I don't know if you want to answer his. Paul, have you got a question?
Yes, sorry. Just on your previous slide, Ruth, I was just wondering, you can keep it on that slide, actually. I think you've got it written there. Where you've got T-level overall QAN, T-level specialism QAN, do we know yet whether, when you say overall, is that the overall qualification including the core and the occupational specialism, or is that the core element of the overall T-level, and then the specialism one is the specialism bit of it? Do you know that yet off the top of your head?
No, I mean, we don't know what the specific QANs are yet. We're hoping we keep asking the DFE for when they're going to be made available.
I appreciate we don't know what the QANs are, but do we know to which chunks that, because the technical qualification, the overall qualification is made up of the core bit, the specs, the placement. Yeah. So you've got the placement QAN, you've got the occupational spec QAN. So I'm just trying to understand where that overall QAN fits.
This is in the context. What you're seeing there, unless I've got this wrong, is in the context of course management functionality, where you have to identify a core learning aim. So, but it by its definition, when it says it's the core learning aim, what it's really meaning in this particular context is that it's something that defines the whole course. The whole program in terms of one of the courses. Is that a reasonable way of describing it, Ruth? It's a rather odd term. We had lots of discussion with the DFE about this, but it's a very good sort of identification, as you can see, of what's going on. But it doesn't necessarily imply the sort of other things that you're describing there, although they have to be there to get the qualification. Maybe they'll have that in their validation. We don't know.
I'm just thinking in terms of actual results coming back, because the core bit will have an A star to E result. So I would expect that to have its own QAN somewhere. The occupational specs, you've obviously got a QAN for, and again, that will have its own grade, distinction, merit, pass, and all that kind of lovely stuff. And then there'll be an overall qualification, which again is distinction, merit, and pass. So I would expect all three of those bits to have a QAN, but I'm only seeing two on your slide. So I just wonder whether that's just because we haven't been told yet by the DFE, they've not clarified down to that level yet. I know they weren't in the last one, so that's fine. No,
we're very lacking in QANs, aren't we, in terms of identification, which is really frustrating. Bruce worked around this, but it's still confusing because you can't use the real thing. All right, I know the DFE's got problems with all these other things, but honestly, it is a bit tricky.
It's like a lot of things, they don't release the quans until after people have started using them in a lot
Absolutely.
of instances, which is obviously completely, excuse my French, arse about face. But
Absolutely.
yeah, okay. Well,
and what's the normal, I would say.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so yeah, and just to emphasize, you can see the first entry here is the non-qualification study, so it hasn't got a quan against it. The English GCSE is the one underneath, which has got a real example of an English GCSE. The third item, the T-level overall quan, we've put in an example for digital production design and development, which is a T-level, and we've put a 3 to indicate it's a level 3 qualification, and that has been identified as the core learning aim.
Yeah, and we've added that to our list of levels, haven't we? What is it? The LT. I've lost it. The 3 and there's 2 of them, isn't there? T level 3 and T level something else. Yeah,
that's it. So the quan in this example is not a genuine example, because we don't know what those quans are going to be yet, but I included it so that I could include it in the school census. So without a quan, that learning aim wouldn't appear in the census. And the same for the one underneath. So you can see it's another course, which is digital production, but it's an OS, a shorthand for occupational specialism. And it's a T level 3. The difference, another difference I've put in is the start date. So for the second one there, we've given it a start date which is next June, so it's a future start date, but that will still be captured in the school census if it's in that academic year. And then the bottom one is a T-level work placement example, which I've just set up for 1 year, and that is a genuine quan underneath ZWRKX003.
When you say it's genuine, you mean it's been made up? It's genuinely been made up by the DFE for their convenience. It's not a real exam.
No,
if you see what I mean.
But it's the actual number, that's going to be used.
That's what they'll have to use. Yeah,
for a T-level industry placement. And all of those things make up the program. Okay, so let me end the show and go into Sims. So I've got an example student called Joe T-level, and if you go to the courses, that's the screenshot I've just showed you. So these are all the components of her T-level. And then we have in the course manager area, the post-16 programs of study area, which I've shown you her example here, where it shows that the core aim is the digital production T-level 3. It shows you all the courses there. And we've got some new items here where we can identify this as a T-level. So we've actually got 3 options to choose from, and the other one that I've shown you here is for T-level transition. So that's another example there.
And the vast majority outside of T levels, everything else is study program.
Yeah.
So anything they did last year that's reported will be a study program. And remember this awkward fact that it's going to it actually redoes what it did the previous year, as well as telling you what's planned this year.
Yeah. And I just wanted to highlight that before we didn't have to have start and end dates and planned end dates for at the program level. So this is new for September 2020, and the qualification hours, the planned hours, are these two items here. And I've just put a note in there just to show you that for T levels, these numbers represent a 2-year program. So that's another difference between T levels and the other sorts of programs.
So I wonder if we're going to see this, Ruth, that when you go into the course itself, that the customer needs to bear that in mind. When you're talking about a course the course for the T level, they have to realise that if they want us to calculate it for them, then the number they're putting in there must reflect 2 years. Whereas if they've got a 2-year course that is for a study program, like an A level, then strangely it has to reflect 1 year. I think that's right, isn't it, Ruth?
Yes.
So it's a bit weird.
So you can drill down from there to get back to this view of the student courses. So if I just show you, if I quickly go into the core learning aim, I've put a note in here. So I've put some snapshots of this in the slides so that you can refer to it later. But we don't know what the exact quans are going to be yet for this one. So this quan here will be different when we come to September. I've set it up as a digital production design and development T level. And basically you need to go in and set up your subjects. So this doesn't exist. You have to go in and set it up yourself in subjects. So it's under tool setups subjects here. Okay, and if I just show you, I set up this one, gave it the code DP, and that can actually be used if you want to use it in Nova for setting up your classes in your timetable. Okay, so I've only set up one, and then we have introduced 2 new levels that you can use on the course, T level and T level transition. And then you can edit this description to make it fit or to make it particular to your school. Okay, so if I show you the membership, in this example, I've just added this student to show you this one specifically, but obviously you can add classes as you would do for any other course. So this student has a 2-year membership, and eventually the correct one will be attached here. Okay, so I'm going to go back and show you the occupational specialism. So again, the course has been set up in a similar way, but I've just edited the description here. So it's still a T level, level 3, but it's the occupational specialism part of it, and obviously it will have its own quan that will identify it.
Ruth, and we would put in this is the area, isn't it, where we would put in those hours that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, so you can do. Yeah.
Did you notice how that non-qualification ties in quite nicely with that, what was in Ruth's bottom right-hand corner in terms of extra bits of time that you can count in your program?
Okay, and then the one that is of some interest, because this is quite new, work placements. So I've created a 1-year course for this, but it could be you set it as for the whole 2 years. And I've not done anything special here, just put a subject in that's work placement, and identified it as being related to T levels here. But it's the QAN that's going to identify it as being a T level work placement course. Okay. The other codes I've put down here for your reference. So there's 2 other sorts of work placements that can be reported. There's a 16 to 19 and an industry placement capacity and delivery fund option. So I'm not sure if they were the pilot organisations who use that one. So in this one, I've added in my student again, just over a 1-year membership. And we've got some additional functionality here to enable you to add a work placement for that student. So I think I might have added one already, but we've got a separate panel here for the actual work placement information. And I've actually added 2 placements already for that student. And you can record the start and end date of the placement, and the employer ID. Basically, there's a website that you need to log into to obtain this employer ID, and I've got a link to that in one of my slides. So that's something that you need to look up. And then there's a mode, internal or external, and the planned hours for that placement. So in this first example, I've just put what I think the minimum requirement is 315 hours or a 3-month placement. But it's possible you could have more than one placement. So we've made it as flexible as possible.
Yeah. And the DFE has already told the people, the schools and FE colleges that are taking part in this, that they quite understand that this is a problem area at the moment because of the coronavirus, so some businesses being shaky and others perhaps no longer being in a position where they can bring people in. So they do understand that, and they're going to be tolerant of what goes in there, and not to, if there isn't as many hours there as they would expect, they will understand. I think they'll expect it to be made up later. I think that's the sort of line they were taking, Ruth, to this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I ask a question about levels, please? It's Jeanette here. You mentioned that the T level was available. Is that now available in Nova? So when you're creating your timetable, you can assign levels appropriately?
Things were always, as I understand it, the fact that you put it into this system means that it becomes available to Nova.
Okay.
I'm not an expert. Is there Tom, perhaps? I think Tom's a.
I've got a couple of releases behind on my Sims at the moment because of downloading, but I haven't got it in there at the moment. So I'm guessing it's probably in the more recent release.
Yes, that's right.
So because that
it's in the summer release, isn't it, Ruth? That it comes in.
Okay, fine. Because obviously that way you would create your course automatically, wouldn't you?
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
Yes, it makes it easier.
Work placement and things like that as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's go to school census. So here's one I prepared earlier. So school census autumn is 1st of October this year. There is a learning aims panel here. So you can do some limited searching here. So I've got somebody called Joe T Level. So you can see here that all those course memberships have come through, the ones with QANs. So you've got the core one, the occupational specialism, the English GCSE, and the work placement. Okay. And something just to bear in mind, again, for T levels, the start date of the occupational specialism is in the future. It's after the census date. It's the 7th of June 2021, but it is being reported for T-levels. So that's a new thing for this year. Okay, and I'll just show you the reports. So in the on-roll learning aims report, this is the existing report. If I do a search for T-level again, that's the transition one. So those are those 4 learning aims as reported in the census. And you can see on the right hand side, one of the new bits of information is program type. So that differentiates these from the other study programs or transition T-level transitions. The other report I can just quickly show you is programs of study report. So this is an existing report that we've made changes to. So in this one, we've added in, can you see those T-level planned hours and non-qualification hours here? So we've added that to the existing report that showed planned hours for the other program types. So again, if I search for that student, sorry, it's a bit small. Can you see her hours have come through as 1700 and 100 under the T level?
So you can see there, can't you, that those other numbers there were entered in the same. If they used our method of getting the numbers, then those are the numbers that were entered in the same place for a study program or a transition T level, as the same place as it is for the T level, but we know which column to put it in because of the type of program. So yeah, it does hang, yeah. Even though you look as though you've got two, you know, it looks as though we need to have two new fields, but we don't. We can use the existing one because we know how to interpret it, and the customer needs to understand that when they're talking about the hours for a T level, they're talking about over 2 years. When they're talking about any other anything else other than a T level, including transaction T level, they're talking about a year. So that's something we need to keep reminding them of. Otherwise, they may end up. It could have an impact on their funding. I think it's probably one of the more likely things they'll won't realise. Hopefully the DFE will put some validation in for it. You never know.
Okay, this is a new report for this time to show just the information about the programme. So I only filled in 2 items in the programme, post-16 programme of study screen. So that's why it's only showing you 2 items at the moment, but you would have one for all of those post-16 students. And it's just to show you that the type is reported here, and then you've got the overall information for the programme. So the start and end date. And then there's one more report to show you. There's a new report for work placements. So in my example, I showed you I created 2 work placements for this student. And it's reporting the one that starts in the future as well. So it's this one. If it's in the same academic year, it will report that one in the census as well. Okay, and if you're going to try this on the software at the moment, it won't work for you because you need to have a course with one of these 3 quans specifically. So I've got training data and I've made it work so that I can demonstrate this to you. But until we know what these codes, when they're going to be available in the QWS downloads, you won't be able to try this out in the Census.
We have moaned about this,
Yes.
in case anyone's wondering.
Okay, so that concludes the information I was going to show you. So have any other questions come through, or did you want to see anything else? We've got about 15 minutes left.
There is another question in the chat, Ruth.
Okay, so Jim.
Sorry, I've been talking to you without the mic on. There you go. Yes. So I've been telling you about this. So John King has asked, surely we will not be able to identify placements in time for this autumn census. And I think the answer to that, Ruth, do correct me, is that the DFE are aware of this, and everything they've written suggests there's quite a lot of latitude there, including, I believe, the latitude for putting something in that then doesn't materialise, and I think also the latitude in not putting something in. Is that how you would read what they've said, Ruth, the DFE, about the placements?
Yeah, well, it's a 2-year course, isn't it? So it's entirely possible you wouldn't do the placement until the 2nd year anyway. So you can only record what you know.
Yeah, I think that 2-year business is by far the most it's the most awkward aspect of this, that we have A-level courses and programs that are 1 year on, and then that are even though they're 2 years, you have to think of them as 1 year, and then you've got this 2-year course program. You have to think of that. There's a hand up, Ruth. Can you see it?
Hi, it's Claire Oadman. We're actually a provider of T-levels for 2020.
That's great.
And the industry placement can be over the 2 years, and it can be not necessarily just in a block. You can do it as day release, and then you can do weeks at a time.
Yes, and that's interesting as to how you actually record that in for the census, in terms of starts and end dates and the like. But that's a useful point for us to think about in terms of some advice there. So in terms of that'll be something, I think, for our frequently asked questions. All right. Is there any other questions at all? Anyone got anything else they'd like to ask us at the moment, or for that matter, comment on, or for us to provide more details of, or otherwise, we'll just go to Ruth. Have you got anything else you want to show?
I've got Steve Long.
Yes, right.
Got a question. So, how available is what we've seen today? I'm just thinking in terms of, obviously there's going to be some training or not needed to support the rollout of this, and some credible data as well, as part and parcel of what we're working with our schools that we partner with on this. So is this available beyond what we're seeing today? Where is this?
Yeah. The problem is that we can't really do very much until we have the quans in place. Well, that was our original intention, was once we had the quans in place, then we could put the data in place to illustrate this. In terms of what we tell customers, obviously we're going to make these slides available, and I'll probably do a video on it. What we've concentrated on so far is the majority of all but 5 schools will be involved in the study programs, which themselves have changed because of this. And that's not because it caused them to change. It's because it was an ideal opportunity for the funding agency to get the information that it's always wanted. And to be fair, if you're going to have to do it for a transaction for T levels, why wouldn't you do it across the board? So there's been quite a lot to tell customers who are actually staying with study programs. But yes, we do need to push forward with getting some information to customers about that, and we have done our best to get Ruth and I and others, I'm sure, done their best to get people involved with this this particular meeting, and we will be looking for future events and putting up presentations and the like. But we've got to be honest about this. With all the other things that are going on, we've got to think that that schools will not have their eye on this, particularly if they're not involved in T levels. They won't have their eye on this until September, which is going to be an interesting time. Now, Paul's got his hand up, so if you could add your comment then or question, Paul.
Yeah, sorry. I was just going to say, while you've been talking, I've just been having a quick nosy around to see if there's any more QANs available for any of these things, because obviously that's probably key to putting any information into this thing. And there are still very limited. There's a couple of QANs on the Ofqual website for St Pearson, what look to be sort of an overall or possibly the core. It's really not easy to tell, but there's a couple of QANs there for what look like the core elements. But there's nothing. I've just downloaded and had a quick look on the website for the discount codes and QANs right up to 2022, which is when you'd expect the results to be coming back. And there is nothing in there at all at this stage for either the T levels, the placements, or the core elements. So it's difficult to do anything without the QANs in place. So
I'm worried
else,
that
we're all sitting waiting.
Yeah. If we could, what I'm worried about doing is causing more confusion by taking the approach that Ruth has had to take, where you have to sort of pick things that aren't going to be the right thing. Sometimes, particularly if you can't talk to them while you're doing it, people take things to be absolutely as they would do them. But in this case, they're not going to be, because it very much, well, you saw to what extent things depend upon the QANs and the like. It's the whole thing hangs together, but it hangs together when it's complete, and it doesn't hang together very neatly without it. So it's a worrying area for us if we can't get these QANs in place. And as you say, if they're not on the exams websites, then getting them into the QWS website, those two things go together. But it is very awkward. Ruth, do you want to add anything about that at all?
I think there's about three QANs on the Ofqual website. There's 3 QANs, 2 from Pearson and 1 from NCFE. For the Pearson ones, your product design type stuff you're just talking about. And the third one from the NCFE is an education and childcare one, which is obviously one of the other T levels that's being delivered. But they're very limited in information. The grading system, it just says they are being graded. It says they start in September, which is obviously right, but there's nothing about any placement QANs, or it's difficult to understand whether these are actually core or the overall QANs they're talking about. It doesn't specifically say in any of the specification documentation. So yeah, it's all a bit lastminute.com.
Well, absolutely.
If they're expecting to be done in September,
and probably later than last minute. I think that people are going to run off the seat of their pants from this interview, and then they're going to have to pick it up afterwards. Just what we don't want to happen, but whether we can head that off, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Thanks, Paul.
No problem. Thank you.
Oh, and if you could send us anything you find like that, even if it isn't in the QWS stuff yet, any early warning to know what it looks like is going to be helpful for us to detect it. I know they're supposed to tell us these things, but things are difficult, so they may not.
Yeah, if I spot anything anywhere else, I'll let you know. But
that's great. Thanks, Paul. Much appreciated. Anybody else, or should we just go to our the very last wrap up and next steps?
Yeah, that'd be good.
So if I share my screen now, look at that. Where I left it. Who would have thought it? You can see that. I take it, everyone. Yep. Okay. So what have we got there? Well, we've got in terms of the wrap up, we're going to obviously we're going to edit that to take out my jibe about certain areas that isn't necessary. But in terms of the wrap up, we are intending to follow up this meeting as demanded and as we think we feel people this should be happening. We've got to start with the frequently asked questions, but if anyone, now that they've seen this and read stuff from the DFE, if you could get back to us with anything you'd like us to add to the fact, we might stop lots of stuff coming into the help desk. If we can get stuff up there, if we can get something into the data for this, then even better into our training data. But it is awkward at the moment. Obviously, we're here to solve awkward. Well, the other thing I wanted to just sell to you is where you'll find out about what we're how we're moving this forward. There's a place to check, and I would suggest just look at it occasionally. But anything that comes from me, you'll find in the hub. So if you well, I put it here. So if you click on this, it'll go to the hub. And oh, what was that? I hope it's going to open. Oh, it did. Yep. Gave me a strange error message. That's all clever stuff, isn't it? Managing to do this, in my opinion. I'm impressed when these things work. So you can find there's links to everything that I'm roughly involved in. A few for things I'm not involved in as well. But for these purposes, the sorts of areas we're interested in are the file sets. They're important to us. We're also going to have to, of course, remind people how to, particularly to download the QANs, and particularly where what they mean in terms of the T levels. And this is the area where it says here school census autumn 2020. That's one of the main areas where these sorts of things will come about. But there's also another area just to be aware of, and that's the actual course management area. You notice that's for everyone. Everyone has the pleasure of course management. Obviously, if you're a primary school, you don't have a lot of interest in this, but you find that was my 5-minute warning, by the way. And course managers also got some useful items. Has got and will have useful items here. So, for examples, it does show you the 2 new levels that are here, and it does carefully show you the importance of how you set up the subject. So these things are covered. And in terms of the classifications that you bring into the system, and also the timetabling, the things that are related to the timetabling, which was referred to. And here you've got, as Ruth says, we have put in the things that we do know for certain. So we do know for certain that those 3 codes are being used for these rather odd things. I don't think Ruth alluded to these, but they are a little bit strange. So you've got the 16 to 19 program work experience. That's pretty obvious, isn't it, really? I suppose. And then you've got this weird thing called CDF, Capacity and Delivering Fund Industrial Placement. Has anyone ever heard of that? I hear it's a pot of money is how to best think of it. So if the schools are doing their placements from that point of view, that could get you some money. We don't think you'd ever have all three of these at once, but this one I've never come across. I think it's mainly for FE, but remember, we do have some schools that operate in close contact with FE, so perhaps it will be important. And then we've got the one we've been looking at today, which is the technical level work placement. So this is an example of information that the funding agency has always wanted to know these things, but because of T levels where they had to know it, they put it in. So that's quite a useful thing to describe. It also goes through the slides that Ruth was talking about in terms of how you take the person, the membership, and then you click on the placement. That's how you get people into the placement area, and then you can add extra details for that person once you've got them into that area. And I've got some examples there of the placement. I need to update this because I didn't have an add button there, Ruth. I'm pretty sure that's there now, isn't it? The add button, and you can remove them. So it's a slightly odd. I think you get used to it very quickly. This idea you click it there to get a placement, get the placements represented, and then you can add the individual detail as you need it. And this is the other screen that Ruth went through, and the like. So there is already a fair bit of information around for this area. I dare say that it hasn't been avidly read yet, and it's going to get bigger. There's going to be quite a lot. I think it's quite a big thing. Personally, it's going to. I think the start of the year in a secondary school is going to have this element about it, regardless of who is involved. Right, does anyone have any? When I'm presenting, for some reason I can't see. Oh, I can see my chat screen. It's come back. So, is there anything else? Steve's had to go. Oh, and I was just showing him those things to prove that I had done them. Steve's my boss, by the way. Okay, well, shall we? I mentioned, this, and I want to emphasise it again. The FAQ and the like. If you do have anything for that, anything you think would be useful to other schools and the like, and particularly to the T-level schools, or introducing that now or soon, do let us know, and we'll be very happy to provide a FAQ. Well, I say that because Ruth will probably do most of it, but there you go.
Thanks, Jim.
Just a big thank you. And bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ruth. That was great.
Thanks both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.